History books often point to 1757 as the moment Britain conquered India. The story goes that a small British force defeated a massive Indian army at the Battle of Plassey, winning an empire in a single afternoon. But Plassey was a mirage. The British commander, Robert Clive, secured his victory through bribery long before a single shot was fired. He paid off the opposing commander, Mir Jafar, to stand down. This backroom deal installed Mir Jafar as a puppet ruler. For the next several years, the East India Company operated like a parasite. They extracted millions of rupees in bribes and trade concessions from behind the scenes, leaving the local nawabs to handle the actual burden of governing. Plassey gave the British a foothold through a corporate heist. The actual bloody fight that would test their military power and determine who ruled the subcontinent was still 7 years away. By the early 1760s, the company's relentless financial demands and total disregard for local laws pushed the new Nawab of Bengal, Mir Qasim, to his breaking point. He realized the British were never going to stop expanding their grip on his territory. Knowing he couldn't fight alone, Mir Qasim orchestrated a massive coalition. On this map of northern India, 3 distinct powers combined forces. Bengal's army merges with Awadh's Nawab, Shuja-ud-Dawla, and the Mughal emperor, Shah Alam II. These leaders understood the threat. This 3-way alliance represented the final, unified attempt by northern India's native rulers to crush the East India Company and drive them into the sea. The 2 sides finally met on October 22, 1764. They camped outside Buxar, a fortified town sitting directly on the muddy banks of the Ganges River in Bihar. This visualization compares the forces on the ground. The Indian coalition brought an overwhelming army of around 40,000 to 50,000 soldiers. Facing them was a tiny East India Company contingent of just 7,000 men, organized into tight, highly rigid geometric squares. Commanding that small British force was Major Hector Munro. He was a seasoned officer who ran his units with strict, unforgiving discipline, ensuring his men would hold their lines regardless of the numbers moving against them. This time, there was no Mir Jafar waiting in the wings to betray his own side. There were no secret treaties. Munro's men were entirely outnumbered, and they had to rely on pure military execution to survive. When the coalition attacked, Munro's geometric formations held. The British utilized tightly synchronized infantry volleys and rapid-fire artillery to tear through the massive but loosely coordinated Indian ranks. The coalition's size became a liability as their lines descended into chaos. In just a few hours of direct combat, the company forces broke the alliance. They captured 133 pieces of coalition artillery and seized over 1 million rupees in cash straight from the battlefield. The united front shattered immediately. Mir Qasim fled the region entirely, eventually dying in poverty years later. Seeing their armies decimated, both the Nawab of Awadh and the Mughal emperor surrendered to the British. The East India Company had just defeated 3 major Indian powers in a direct fight. They no longer had to operate through puppet Nawabs or rely on deception. They now held unquestioned military dominance over northern India. The following year, the British weaponized that battlefield victory into a binding legal document, the Treaty of Allahabad in 1765. Under this treaty, the defeated Mughal emperor was forced to grant the British the Diwani rights. As outlined in this flowchart over Bengal, the East India Company now held the exclusive legal authority to collect all taxes across the wealthy provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. Look at how this shifts the financial flow. Previously, the company had to bring gold and silver from Britain to buy Indian textiles and spices. Now, they used the tax revenue collected directly from Indian peasants to buy those exact same Indian goods, shipping them back to Britain for a 100% profit. They were acquiring a nation's export wealth for free. The East India Company shed its merchant identity. They became a sovereign imperial power, taxing citizens, enforcing laws, and maintaining a standing army. This corporate monopoly had immediate and devastating consequences for the local population. The company systematically dismantled the world-famous Bengali silk and cotton industries to eliminate outside competition. EIC agents dictated arbitrary, extremely low prices for woven goods. Artisans who objected or tried to sell their labor elsewhere faced harsh physical punishments, including torture. Meanwhile, the aggressive extraction of tax revenue from peasants without any reinvestment in the land triggered a severe agricultural collapse. The East India Company used the Battle of Buxar to conquer the land, and then they cannibalized the economy that sat on top of it. While Plassey is the name most people remember, it was the blood and mud of October 1764 that truly laid the foundation for the British Raj.